Oh, we are live. Okay.
We are live.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Tea with Lily. And today we're going to take a small break from AI, but who knows? AI might come in and talk about something else: leadership, resilience, and all that it entails. I'm your host, Lily Nadia Mensa, a brand strategist by day, an event host by night, and I'm a huge enthusiast of AI, as you know from the last few weeks. I've done a lot of AI. I just love it because I think it's something that we have to learn to live with or are learning to live with. And I want to know all about it. So we've also got Gary Anello, who's going to lead this, right? This conversation around leadership and resilience. Aren't you, Gary?
I'm going to lead the conversation. I can try to lead the
Well,
conversation.
we're going to
We'll
talk
see how
about
it
it.
goes. We're going to talk about it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But let's see what's in the news today. We've we got the Eurovision results, Eurovision over Saturday, and we were talking about it earlier that this was the first year that neither of us watched it
Well,
because we're
exactly.
doing something else.
I was busy doing other things, and I should have because Germany, as as we were saying, Germany traditionally is really down near the bottom. And I live in Germany. I'm based in Leipzig, Germany.
Hmm.
And Germany, every year we all watch it, whether you were German or not German. The fact that we live here and we watch it and we end up thinking, oh, what's what have we just witnessed?
Yeah.
Um, because the showing is always so poor for has been
Mm.
in the last several years so poor for Germany. But from what I understand, they did well. You said yes.
Well, I mean, they did very well in comparison to the United Kingdom.
Okay.
But Switzerland won,
Right.
followed by Switzerland, and then followed by Croatia. So good luck, well done to them.
Hmm.
Germany was 12th, and the UK was 14th.
14th, I think. Yeah.
Yes, that is so sad. And we're not going to talk too much about that, are
No.
we, Gary?
No, we're
We're
not.
not.
No,
The
we're not.
Brits and the Germans, you
Mm,
know that
mm, mm, mm,
tussle
mm, mm,
that we
No,
have.
no, we're not gonna go there.
We're
We're
not
not
going to
gonna go
go
there.
there.
We're not gonna go there.
The
Um,
second item on here is the BAFTAs. And I know you have, once I've read your bio, well, you guys will know why, because the BAFTAs is the all about glitz and glamour, TV, and all that. And the highlight for me was a young lady called Bamisola Ikumelo, and she won the female performance in comedy. And she bounced onto the stage and she goes, I'm going to go black church. And she goes, God is
great,
good. And then
great,
everybody went, all the time. And
right.
then she goes, all the time, God is good. And she goes, this means that diversity is working BAFTA. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. But
Yeah.
that was very good. And then we had Lauren Kelly, who's a huge household name in the UK. She got a
Hmm.
lifetime kind of award. So that was
Hmm.
really good. Oh, hi,
Hmm.
Janine. So then the last but not least, well, the penultimate thing is that Stevie Wonder
Uh-huh.
is now a Ghanaian citizen.
Really?
Yes, that's in the news. That's it's not in the
I.
popular news, but it's in the news. And he's a Ghanaian citizen, and in Ghana we say Akwaba,
Uh-huh.
and then followed by Prince Harry and
Hmm.
Meghan in
Right.
Nigeria.
Right.
And so to them, I will say Ikabo, which is, I think, Yoruba for welcome again. And
Oh,
please,
lovely.
my Nigerian friends, do not shoot me. You know, when you go to Paris, it's better to speak bad French than no French at all. So, yes, Aquaba and Cabo. So, yes, so that those are the good things I think I to be in the news.
Those are the
So, what
good.
a
They're good
momentous
things.
week! What do you
It
think?
has been. Well, it has been a momentous week. I mean, we were talking briefly about this uh the sort of discussion in terms of work, this discussion about, there's been so much talk about reducing the 5-day work week to 4-day work week, which
Yes, of
I'm all
course.
for. I'm all for that. I'm all
Oh,
for
I'm
4
actually
day.
for 2 days, but
Yeah, well, yeah, we could, I could go with that too. But there's all of this talk around the 4-day work week,
mm,
and it's been tested and it seems to be working in certain places. And yes, there are challenges with it. But then somebody that we both know that I think is going to be on your show in some weeks posted an article about a company that's considering a 6-day work week. Um, Primarily around executives. It's more about executives putting in a
mm.
6-day work week, which I think is kind of, I imagine to a certain extent it must be disincentivizing to executives to think, okay, well, if I'm going to work for this company, I have to be there 6 days. Yes, executives work a lot, but to kind of say that it's going to be assumed you're going to be there 6 days, I just don't see how it is going to. I don't see how it's going to. Allegedly, it's supposed to improve productivity. I don't get how that's going to happen.
How? How on
I
earth?
don't
We
know.
need to slow down. And today I actually heard on the radio that slowing down is better than going farther. You achieve more, doing fewer tasks rather than trying to multitask all over here. Now, they're talking about multitasking. I think you're getting a producer for this show because I do too much multitasking for one person pushing all the buttons. So I do need a producer for this show. And I was talking to someone earlier about that. So maybe next time or the time after, I will have a proper producer. So there you go. Now, tea with
Probably a good.
Lily, guys.
That's
Yeah, it
probably
will
a
be
good thing.
because it's just
Yeah.
too much comments and stuff like that. I'm trying to do everything and I'm not Superwoman.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Tea with Lily is a space for, as you know, informal discussions
Yeah.
where we chat over a cup of tea and
Hmm.
guests from all walks of life, the great and the good, like you, Gary, come on the
Oh,
magic
thank you.
sofa and talk to us about your experiences with tips and tricks to help people who are interested in business and career growth. So, without further ado, Gary, welcome to Tea with
Thank you.
Lily
Thank you so much. Thank you so
officially.
much.
And Gary
Officially,
Allen, officially, welcome to Tea with Lily.
thank you. And
And
yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
what are you drinking?
I was going to say officially, I am, and unofficially, I am I am drinking. You might enjoy this. A cup of Fortnum and Mason Earl Grey Classic.
That is
It's
so
quite nice.
fancy, Mr. Gary. Very fancy. Do you have Fortnum and Mason in Leipzig?
No. The last time I was in London, I bought a bunch of Fortnum and Mason tea because I quite like Fortnum and Mason tea, and so I
Yes.
bought a whole. mm, I don't want to. It's not a gift box, but it was sort of an assortment of different ones. So
Yes.
there's afternoon blend, royal blend, Queen Anne blend, smoked. There was a smoked Earl Grey classic
Wow.
that was amazing. I mean, it's a kind of an acquired taste because it's
Hmm.
essentially Earl Grey, but had sort of a smokiness to it. So if you're
Yeah.
into that kind of a flavor, oh, it didn't last very long. It was gone
I,
pretty quickly.
I'm a very simple girl, Gary. I still like the fine things in life, but I'm a very simple girl.
Mm,
And I'm having mint tea. And I generally have mint tea in the evenings or
mhm,
chamomile tea in the evenings,
mhm.
but I generally prefer regular PG tips or
Yeah,
whatever. Plain old English breakfast. That's me.
yeah.
Uh,
Normally, because this is a special occasion, I have the Fortnum and Mason, but otherwise in my
oh, we are
apartment,
honored. We are
yes,
honored.
yes, of course. But normally I have Yorkshire Gold tea,
Mm, mm.
and it's just a really strong cup of tea. I really like a good strong cup of tea, and Yorkshire Gold's pretty strong stuff, especially if you let it steep for a while.
Yes,
But I thought, no, this is important to have
the
the fancy stuff
finest. And
for
for
the
for
for the
those
finest.
for those for me, if you do afternoon tea, I've sampled a few top restaurant ones, basic ones, and or top hotels. And if you give me Fortnum and I'd take Fortnum and Mason any day. Their
Mm,
scones are to die for. And
mm,
I've
I've not had.
sampled the Ritz. I've sampled some of the top ones, and Fortnum and Mason still does it for me. So that's
Really?
my tip in terms of afternoon tea. In terms of afternoon tea, the scones are the very best in London. Anyway,
That's
they haven't
good to
paid
know.
me. They haven't paid me to say this, but I'm just saying it. I like to
Not
share good
sponsored?
things. I like to
No,
share good
that's
things.
wonderful. That's wonderful to know because it's I've not actually not had Fortnum and Mason scones, so that's good to know. I might my next visit I might have to
It's
check it out.
yummy. It's yummy, yummy.
Okay. All right.
So now
Taken under advisement.
yes, good advert. Listen, we're going to talk about leadership, and for all the leaders
Yeah.
here, stay till the end because Gary comes with a very nice, a couple of nice gifts actually, and
Mhm.
I want one, so I don't know
Okay.
whether I'll be precluded from signing up because of my position, but I definitely want one, so I want to join. I want to join that after party that Gary's having. But let's hear a little bit about Gary before we start. And also, if you're in the,
Excuse me.
let us know where you are in the world, where you're watching from, whether now or later. But so far, we've seen a couple of people. We'll give them hello in a minute. And but let me read Gary's bio for you, and it's quite an interesting one. And this requires me to have my glasses on. So Gary had a first career of nearly 2 decades as a professional actor in the United States. That's fascinating. Gary, where was this? In the Hollywood? Tell us any
It,
famous places or people that
yeah.
we might know, and then we can have their autograph after.
Yeah, you sure, the autographs are free. They're not worth a whole lot, but they're always free. So I grew up in Florida and I studied theater in Florida at university in the town that I grew up in Tampa, Florida. But I spent a few years after that in Chicago,
Okay.
did some theater in Chicago, had the opportunity to work a little bit here and there in Chicago. And then I went to Los Angeles and I was in Los Angeles for 13 years. So yeah, effectively Hollywood. Um, it's a tough business. I was fortunate enough to get on a couple of television shows here and there, a
Hmm.
couple of very low budget kind of horror movies that that are sort of fun to watch now, but are not so great. But I was on a kids show actually in well, because I'm a little older, it was in the 90s, and there was it was fun because I was also working at a hotel, and there was a kid, one of the children of a colleague of mine at the
Hmm.
hotel was just amazed that I was this person who was on this TV show that he was watching,
Does this
and I was
TV
actually
show
the student.
have? Does this TV show have a name?
It does have a name. It was called the it was called the it was called the Big Bad Beetleborgs. Um,
The big bad beetle boards. Okay.
Correct. Was very popular with kids in the 90s, and lasted a few seasons. I was also on a television show called The Practice, which was a
Hmm.
legal drama, which was quite popular. Another drama that was ran for a few years called Boston Public, about a school that was in the kind of the inner city of Boston, and
Mhm.
in both cases, I had a tendency to play lawyers. On the Big Bad
Okay.
Beetleborgs, I didn't play a lawyer. I played kind of a guy who was trying to blow up a house full of monsters.
But I would say you have a very, very good trusting face. Why did they put you in as a lawyer?
I don't know. It
Oh, I
could be
love
why.
lawyers. I
It could
love
be why
lawyers.
I didn't. It could be why I didn't work very much. I don't know. I was. I think because I'm a bigger guy, they tended to see me as a lawyer or a policeman or a detective.
Okay.
That tended to be kind of
Hmm.
where when they would send me in for auditions, that's kind of where I seem to end up. So
Okay. Okay.
um but yeah, I mean, I was able to to work with a couple of people who were
Mm,
quite well known, particularly
mm.
on television at the time. I mean, a highlight that has absolutely nothing to do with my acting career, really, whatsoever, was that in order to make ends meet, I was also a limousine driver. So I got to meet a few people as a limousine driver, which doesn't mean I worked with them, but it kind of does. And I was fortunate enough to
Of
meet.
course, you were working and you were working with them. Any famous
Exactly.
names that we know?
Ex-
I know we're going to go
Yes, of
into the
course.
meat of it. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no. So I worked with. I worked with. I, I
With
drove.
her,
I drove Meryl Streep, which was quite exciting.
was she nice?
She was lovely. Yeah, she
Oh,
was
good.
really
Oh,
lovely.
good.
A few other people who, again, quite famous in the 90s. An actress who was on a television show called Everybody Loves Raymond, Doris Roberts. She was played
Okay. Yeah,
Raymond's mother.
yeah.
She was around. She was quite fun. Um, and yeah, so I had the opportunity to meet a few people along the way, which was quite nice. And I got to be, because of that, got to be friends with a couple of because of the driving, got to be friends with a couple of well-known people, which
Mm,
was quite nice too. That I'm some I don't want to name drop, so but people
yeah.
that I'm quite famous, that are quite famous, that I'm friends with still. So that's quite. I mean, that was quite nice.
But
It's
then
quite nice.
being a driver means that it's a little bit like being a hairdresser, being or because you tend to have a very close relationship with the people that you drive, and they tell you things thinking that it will never go anywhere. And then I think it's part of your job really to have that code, that trust around you, that whatever they say, whatever you see, remains in your limo, or
Right,
remains in your
right,
restaurant, remains in your barber shop, or wherever it is. But
right, right.
you've also been a corporate trainer, facilitator, teacher,
Mhm.
leadership coach, and doing all that since 2005.
Right,
And your
correct.
experience spans multiple industries, including energy, manufacturing,
Hmm.
finance, not for profit, and education. And you say that it begins with the leader, and your love of theatre ensures that your clients are front and center of their own development. So, and when you're not coaching, I'm ad libbing here. When you're not coaching, you can usually be found in the newest restaurant or coffee house
Coffee
or
house.
Vietnamese
Yes.
restaurant in
Yep.
Leipzig. Oh, what's so
Mhm.
special about Vietnamese food?
Vietnamese food is it's first of all it's delicious. And it's often it's often made with a lot of really fresh vegetables and ingredients. And I'm
Yes,
not
yes.
vegetarian anyway, but it's off, there's often like carrots and cilantro if you like cilantro. A lot of people don't. Um, but there's
What's
always a
that?
lot of
What is that? Please educate me.
cilantro. It's it's an herb. It's a little bit like parsley.
Okay,
Um,
okay,
if there's anybody who's watching that hates cilantro, they will probably say something like it tastes like soap. And it's interesting because there is a thing that it for some people there's something about there's an enzyme or something that people have that if for some people it tastes like soap, for other
okay.
people it tastes amazing. I love the taste. I don't have that soap thing happening when I taste it, so that's good. But I just love Vietnamese food because
Okay.
it's the soups and the rolls and the rice paper and the vegetables. I just love it. I just love it. I
And
went to
it
Vietnam last year and it was amazing.
okay. And it clear is probably a lot healthier than some of the food that you'll find on the high streets of modern European city anyway. So
It
yeah,
generally, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's generally true because it tends to be pretty freshly made, although some of it's
yeah.
fried, but and there are quite a few here in Leipzig, of quite a few restaurants that are
Okay.
quite good. Yeah, yeah. And if I see
Hmm.
one that I haven't been to, I kind of think I think I have to check that one out next week, and I usually do.
Okay.
So
So beginning your post acting training career,
yeah,
you did language training, you branched out into other areas of training, and you earned a master's degree in human rights.
correct.
Gosh, from lawyer to human rights, from Kingston University in London, which is
Hmm.
just down the road. Any Londoners watching, Gary has been amongst us before. So,
Hmm.
yeah, and it comes regular. Maybe that's why you keep coming back. And you're also a member of the ICF. You coach. You did your training in 2020, and then you got the accreditation last year. Along the
That's right.
way, you've become certified in so many other things. And you remember, you mentioned something about executive fire, a
Right.
relatively new instrument that
Right. Right.
measures and helps develop executive presence. You're a member of the LGBTQ plus community,
Hmm.
and executive resilience combined with issues around inclusion
Hmm.
and psychological safety, which is
Hmm.
really important, are very much top of your mind these days. So, Gary, Mr. Leno, how did you get into this field and why does it matter?
Yeah. So I always so when I was acting, um, I had always been, and I think what drew me to acting originally was the whole concept of storytelling and hearing
Yeah,
people's
yeah.
stories and hearing what people experienced and what made people tick. I think it's why I became an actor. And it's interesting you brought up the thing about when when you're driving, kind of what happens in the car stays in the car. And there was this idea that people had a certain amount of um, uh, confidence in me. They had a certain
Mhm,
amount of trust in me, and that kind of and also my fascination with just hearing people's stories and hearing how people, again, what made them tick.
mm,
How I landed in Europe, how I got into teaching and training. I actually had visited Europe in 1999, and I was acting at the time, and I thought, I really love it here, and if I continue
mm,
down this road of being an actor, which I loved being, and I do miss that for sure. I thought, if I continue to do this, um, then there's a whole lot of kind of the world experience that I feel like I'm gonna miss out on.
mm,
So I
mm,
decided to relocate. I decided to become certified to become a language teacher, and I moved to Italy, and I was in Italy for a couple of years. Being a member of the LGBT community, I was also very interested in human rights and
mm, mm.
how easy it is for people to be and to feel left out. And I
Yeah.
think that's where my orientation toward, when I say things like it all begins with the leader. I think
Mm.
it all starts from I
At the
think it all
top.
starts from the top. It
Change.
absolutely has to. Change
Yeah.
always has to start from the top. You can start. It can work bottom up,
Mm,
but if you don't have the people at the top,
mm.
if you don't have buy-in from them, it's so
Yeah.
hard to
Yes.
right to make real effective change happen.
Yeah.
Um,
That's very true. And hello, Isabella. Thanks for joining. Do you have any
Hello,
questions
Stella.
for Gary? You can't just drop in and not say anything. So if you have a question for Gary, please drop it in and we'll ask for you, Isabella. But thank you for joining. Izzy, I call it Izzy or Iza. She's a very good friend of mine.
Ah,
And who do you work with top primarily?
so I work primarily with kind of mid-level leaders who
Hmm.
are making a transition into they're moving to the next level. And what I've been
Okay.
focusing on lately, and this executive fire uh, tool that I work with, which is about executive resilience. It's really about working with people who are perhaps moving from one role in which they haven't had line management responsibilities. They're great behind a computer. Being working with people is a different story.
It's
It's
so
pretty
hard. I
it's
mean,
pretty easy to figure out what a computer wants. It's not so easy to figure out what a human being wants.
because
Um,
we just because we're human, we change our minds, our emotions
yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
lead us. And I think some people, not some, a lot of people are promoted based on talent, and they're
yes.
not coached on how to be managers.
That's
and
exactly
how
right.
to manage people and the
That's
human
exactly right.
element of the leadership journey they're
Yeah.
about to embark on. I've
Yeah.
seen it happen so many times, but carry on. Yes. So those
Y-
transitioning into senior leadership. Mm,
It's that's exactly right. What happens is um, people people are promoted because they're very competent at what they do.
mm,
They may not have had any experience at all leading people or working with people or trying to understand how a team works,
excuse me.
or what the dynamics of a
Mm,
team are. So I work with people who are really maybe experiencing that for the first time. People who are great IT people, um, but are not necessarily very experienced people managers. Are you okay? You look like you're coughing there. Are you all right?
yeah, I was coughing when I put my mic off, so I wasn't putting people off. That's a thing that you can do. I don't know,
Yeah.
something. I think my tea went the wrong way. Carry on,
Ah,
please.
okay. No,
Mm,
so I think, what happens very often, right, is that people, exactly what you said, people are really good at what they do, and then they get promoted into a role where suddenly they're thrown into a world that they don't have any experience in. They don't have any real um, competence. It's there's always the stereotype around the curse of competence.
mm,
Somebody's really, really good at what they do, so they promote them to another level, which
mhm,
is all really important and good and valuable. But then they're suddenly thrown into a situation where they have no idea what they're supposed to be doing or how to handle this. And this very often happens, particularly I think in the tech industry.
okay.
People,
Yes.
right? So people who are, they've been coding their whole life, they've been programming their whole life, and then suddenly they lead a team of programmers and they think, now what? Now what do I do? How do I do this? Why don't they all think the way I do? Why don't they all?
Yeah.
And it's the same, not just IT people, but also engineers. So people who are very technical, they have very technical backgrounds, and suddenly they're leading a team of people. And even though the people that they may be leading are also equally technical
Mm,
and just as technical oriented, they have needs that are not about what the computer needs. They have their own needs. They have families. They have significant others. They have hobbies. It's very easy for them to get burned out. It's very
mm,
easy for them to get overwhelmed with work. People who are dedicated to their, and this is what I talk about in this booklet that I'm happy to share with everyone today. Um, because you are really dedicated to the work that you
mhm.
do
Yes.
doesn't mean that your team is. And
Yes.
that's not a
Yes.
bad thing. It's just you have to recognize that as a team leader, that the
Mm,
level of dedication that you have to your job, which might be tremendous and is admirable beyond belief, no doubt. But guess what? Your team probably doesn't have that same level of commitment, and you
mm,
have to understand that.
yes.
And so I think, those are the kinds of people that I like working with and helping them understand that actually there's all sorts of nuance with people who are on a team and they don't think the same way and they don't work the same way. And
Absolutely.
how do you navigate that? It's a challenge for some people.
And in terms of, because that is a challenge, how do we get those people who are struggling? What sort of things can we do or can they do? Because, as a leader myself, sometimes I will struggle. What are some of the tips that we tools that we can use to help us with the teams that we're leading who may not be thinking like we do, may not be that, even as an entrepreneur, you will have team leader, team people in your team who have different dreams to you. You want to run a business, that's on you. I just want to come to work and get my paycheck. How do you manage that?
I think as a leader, what's really essential is there's the concept of radical transparency. you have to be transparent with your team, and your team
Mhm.
has to be transparent with you. And this is, you mentioned earlier about, kind of my fixation, I guess, for lack of a better term, on psychological safety.
Mm,
And if you think about, the different levels of psychological safety, inclusion safety and learner safety and contributor safety and challenger safety, all
mm,
of these levels of safety where you've got to cultivate, I think, as a leader, an environment where people feel that it's okay to be who they are.
mm,
And this is why, as part of the LGBT community, as a cisgender gay man myself,
yeah.
it's important that I know that when I'm working someplace, that it's okay for me to be that. Not
Yes.
just that they say it's okay, but that it's genuinely okay. One of the things I talk about in this booklet, and I will be talking about in the coaching program, is leaders will often talk about an open door policy,
Yes. Yes.
as
Yes.
as though that's the saving grace. That's the thing that
There's
makes
me rolling
everybody
my
happy.
eye, rolling my eyes.
Exactly. Leaders will say, I don't understand. I have an open door policy. And I keep telling my people that I have an open door policy. Well, that's not enough. What people have to do, which I think you have to do as a leader, is if you're in an office, if you've got people coming to your office and you're all in a physical space, whether you're in a physical space or not, even virtually,
Mm,
it's not enough to have an open door policy. Actually, you need to go to their door, and you need to
absolutely.
you need to knock on their door and say, "How is it going?" Not to check up on them,
Mm.
but to make sure they're okay, make sure
Oh,
they feel safe, make sure that they feeling overwhelmed? Do they feel like they can handle the workload that they
mhm.
have? Do they feel like the peers that they're working with, um, are people that they want to work with? Do they feel like the people that they're working with, that everybody's contributing? One of the things I talk about in this booklet is, don't I I just don't suffer jerks very well. I don't. I think I really, which I
If you
can get
did,
me.
I'd be very surprised.
Well, I mean, but there are people who do, right? I'm sure
Mm,
you've encountered. There are people who decide. It's the whole, back in the mid 2000s when they talked about banks being too big to fail.
mm.
And there are people who believe that there are people on their team that are too important to
Yes.
rein in.
Exactly, because they bring in all the dollars. And oh, just before we've got a joiner from LinkedIn, but they just said hello, and I want to acknowledge you. So let us have your name, please, and welcome to Tea with Lily. And whilst Gary is teaching us about how to be resilient as leaders and to be authentic, you talk about authenticity as well, isn't it? But that in itself, how far do you go to be authentic, and how far do you hold some of it back? There's always a fine line, and I think I've met two so far in my career. I've met two people who have managed to straddle that thing where they're still the boss but they're still human,
Mhm,
and the line is rarely crossed, and you
mhm.
know you can trust them. I don't know whether they're born with it or can you teach people.
I think to a certain extent you can teach people, and I think it's really about, um, it has to do with the radical transparency. It has to do with the psychological safety. If you are creating a place where
Mm,
everybody feels safe, if you're creating an environment where everybody feels okay to make mistakes, okay to give an idea that may
mm,
or may not be an appropriate idea. Most importantly, if you create an environment where somebody says, I don't think this is going to work, if you create that, then that gives you, as the leader, I think, the space to be able to say, I don't know all the answers either.
mm,
I think it's really important to know that as a leader, and what helps with the authenticity is always to understand that as a leader, it is not ever, and I'll until the day I die, I'll believe this. It is never about you. You as a leader it is never about you. That's why I say people need to put, leaders need to put themselves front and center of their own development, because
Yes.
leadership's never about you. Yes, you're responsible. You might, as a manager, be responsible for the bottom line. You might be responsible for KPIs. You
Mm.
might be responsible for determining what the OKRs are going to be. Yeah, I get all of that. But in
Hmm.
the end, what's really got to happen is that you have to understand that you as a leader are not there for you. You as a leader
Yes.
are there for them. And I think that's how you, if there's a way to teach authenticity, it's at least starting with that as a baseline,
And I
is
think
recognizing.
you're probably talking about a term that I've heard a lot of in recent years, which is servant leaders.
Hmm.
You're there to serve. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of people lose that when you talk about it's about your people rather than being about you. You're
Hmm.
there to serve the group that you've been put in charge of to make
Hmm.
sure that the whole group or the whole team or the whole country
Hmm.
succeeds. So it's from country, team, village, wherever. It's not
Yeah.
about you, it's about service. But I think power takes over.
Hmm.
Power takes over. And how do we get ourselves or people into that situation where once the power has gotten grip of that person's ego, it's really hard, isn't it, to reel it
Hmm.
back?
Hmm. Hmm.
Is there anything that you can talk to that particular thing of power and leadership and how that messes a lot of stuff?
Yeah. I love the thing about the discussion about servant leadership. As I understand it, and I don't know a lot about the details of the history of servant leadership, but as I understand servant leadership, is that it actually has its origins in Christianity,
Mm,
in the
mm,
belief that Jesus was the first. I mean, he was the embodiment of a servant leader. He was not there for himself. He was there for, if this is if this is your religious belief, if this is your
yeah,
belief system, he was there for everybody else. He was not there
yeah,
for himself.
yeah.
And that this is where the concept of servant leadership first came about. Now, you can you can look at leadership that way. You can look at it as values based leadership as
Mm,
well. You can look at it
okay.
as, you can look at, I mean, it's essentially the same thing, right?
Mm, mm,
But I think people, when they start thinking about religion and they sort of get hung up on, yeah, but that's not really my belief system. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. But it really is about, as a servant leader, it really is about what you believe. What are your values? Your values are, and this is what I talk about in the resilience, the 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 three components, this idea of the story, and what your story is, this idea of what are your values? What do you
mm.
stand for? When you're looking for a role, when you're deciding you want to be a leader, what do you stand for?
Yes.
And if you don't, there's all sorts of stereotypes and everything. Like, if you stand for everything, then you stand for nothing, and all of that.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
all
yeah.
true. But 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 that is part of the whole story component of
Mm,
resilience, which is, I have to know what I believe in order
mm,
to be able to work here. When I said earlier about, being a cisgender gay male, I have to know that I'm in a place where that's okay, where that value is not going to have to be compromised because I have to cover, or because I have to pass, or because I have to pretend I'm somebody I'm not. And
yeah.
that doesn't, whether you're Muslim, whether you are Jewish, whether, it doesn't matter, whether
Mm,
you're trans. It's about, am I in a place where I belong, where I'm safe?
mm. And that as a leader, you have to demonstrate that
Absolutely.
you're there for
Yeah.
everybody,
Yeah, you've
and
got that's
regardless of what
100%.
they identify as, they this you have to create that space of safety for everyone.
100%. That's I
regardless.
think that's
But I
absolutely
think
true.
sometimes, even if you don't believe in that yourself, it doesn't matter. It has to be as part of the whole group. So I may believe something else about a particular religion or whatever, but
Mhm,
that means that if I find myself leading a group of different religions, I should be prepared to accept, I should make sure that everybody else is accepted and it's got nothing to do with me.
mhm,
Yeah, so
exactly.
that's it. But I love everybody. As long as the person is not a jerk, I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, this is the thing, like, as long as you're just just be a good person. I mean, one of
Mm,
the things I used to have on, I don't know if I still have it there, on my LinkedIn, sort of the headline, is that I just said, I said at the end of it, "Just be kind. It's not hard."
mm, yeah.
And I think as an authentic leader,
Mhm,
just be kind.
yeah.
Just it's not it's not brain surgery, right? Leadership is not brain surgery, to be very honest. I mean, the thing that I have on my banner for LinkedIn is that it's simple, but it's not easy. It's not a
Mm,
complicated. It's
yes.
a very Zen kind of thing, but it's not a complicated. Leadership is almost overthought. It's over
I think probably like
complicated.
most things in life these days,
Yeah,
there are
yeah,
things that you don't need a degree for, but somebody
yeah,
has written a paper on it and
mm,
created a degree for. When someone with a little bit of common sense can actually do that. So,
mhm,
but yeah, for me, leadership is about service, and I try when I
mhm.
can, and also sometimes leaders will get things wrong, right? It's
Sure.
about owning up, putting your hands up and saying, I got it wrong. And also being open to learning, I
Mhm.
guess, from the people that you're leading.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is what, when I was saying earlier about, um, as a leader being able to say, I don't, creating a psychologically safe atmosphere also, or an environment also means that you have the courage, you have the humility to
Hmm.
say, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yes,
I could be
yes.
wrong. And
Mm,
I think the more a leader has the courage
hmm.
to say that, to say
Yes,
sometimes,
yes.
I maybe I didn't get it right. I don't know. But I think that just goes so far, that goes such a long way to
Mm,
instilling respect
yes,
and
yes.
confidence in people. I would much rather work with a leader who says, "Huh, maybe I got it wrong," than
Mm,
work with a leader who will always say, "No, I've thought this through, and I really think it's important that we do it this way." I I think I'd much rather work with the first one. I'd much rather work with the first one who says,
exactly.
maybe I don't know, maybe I'm dead wrong. I could be dead wrong. I probably not. I mean, I would hope that somebody, if they've got to a point, and this is the whole thing about about competence, I would hope that by the time that they've been promoted to a leader, they have a certain level of competence, and they have a certain level of ability to carry out and to execute the responsibilities, the strategy, whatever it is that they're there to do. I would hope that that's the case.
Yes.
But equally, I hope
Mhm,
that they have the humility to say, but maybe I got it wrong. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there's a better way. And I think that's
mm,
really important too, is that you create an environment where you are genuinely soliciting from people.
mm.
What do you think? What do you think? What do you think is the right idea? What do you think is a good idea? That's why
Yeah,
I think team meetings which are always led by the leader, are just not very interesting meetings,
yeah,
because everyone feels subservient at that point. Everyone feels like they're they have to prove a point.
Yes.
Whereas if you have a leader who says, okay, who, whether however you do it, different leaders do it different ways, who's leading it this week, or we're
Yeah.
just going to go around the table and you do it this week, 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 whatever it happens to be, but that you don't create an environment where you're kind of always on top.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also in terms of having the newer members of the team bring the ideas, because they don't it's got nothing to do with it doesn't have anything to do with age, but
Mm-mm.
there's if somebody's new, they've been brought in from another organization, or they've joined because they're new, they've just started their career, there's something that they have to offer. I think leaders need to get that. It's not, if we keep doing what we're doing all the time, we get the results that we'll always get. So why hire someone new or someone fresh from college and keep doing things that we did in the 50s? It's
Hmm.
not going to work.
Hmm.
And they
Right.
will leave. And
Exactly.
that's where you have
Right.
attrition and all of that.
Right. That's exactly right. And that's also around, that's also what the discussion is about remote work and people working from home and people working even in other countries. And it's actually, people talk about, well, you don't create the same kind of camaraderie. You don't create the same level of
Mm, mm.
closeness. You don't,
Yes, yes,
which
yes.
I get that. But what you do get in exchange is a difference in perspective that you would never have got before. If I work at a university, if we hire somebody from who is in the middle of nowhere in France to work with us,
Hmm.
they're going to bring a perspective that as Germans who all working living along the Rhine River couldn't possibly grasp.
And that's
Um,
where diversity, people with
Absolutely,
diverse thinking, and diversity of thought, and all of that comes in. And
yeah.
I want to let me ask a question about you mentioned about the pushback in terms of diversity and resilience. Where are you on that?
I think Well, I think that there, in terms of the pushback between diversity, the pushback with diversity and resilience, I think I don't know. I don't really see a pushback so much
Mm,
about it. I do think that inclusion is essential to building
absolutely.
resilience in an organization. Inclusion
Hmm.
is essential, to kind of be living out diversity. In fact, there's all this talk now about, they're not so much here, but in the United States, they kind of want to drop the whole concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion. They want to drop diversity because it feels, not because they don't want to honor that, but that it feels too performative. That what they want to focus on now, which I get, is that they want to focus on inclusion. They want to focus on the fact that they really want everybody to have a seat at the table. They don't want to just say, okay, well, we have, you know, we have a, I don't know, a Indian
A
trans
quota.
man. We have a
Yeah.
quota. Yeah, we have
Mm.
a we okay. So we have to make sure we have a black woman from a different part of the country, and we have all of that is just box ticking exercises.
Yeah.
All of that is just, they talk about it being diversity it's also about diversity propping, right? So
Mm,
I've
yeah.
also been in situations where I've been asked my opinion because I'm the gay man. Well, I don't have the same I don't have the same opinion as every gay man I know. There are plenty of gay men I know who have extremely conservative politics. I can't speak for every gay man. And I think this is the issue with diversity, is people, if there's any kind of pushback, it's that people
Mm.
think that if I hire someone who is a black woman, then that black woman will be able to speak for every black woman. And
That
that
is
just,
so tiring
it is,
and
I can't
jarring.
even imagine. I can't even imagine. And it's because I know, just as again, as a
Mm.
LGBT person, I don't, I don't, I mean, I joke about this all the time. Like, I just am not a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, and I sometimes get, you know, pushback from that because I'm going to lose my gay card because I'm not part of because I don't like the show, right?
It is a bit
And
out there, though, isn't it?
it is pretty out there, and it can be fun, but the thing is, it's not I'm just different. I have
Mm,
different tastes. I have different interests. I
yeah.
didn't watch Eurovision this weekend. I had an opportunity to go to a party where it was all gay people who were watching Eurovision, and I just didn't because I was busy doing other things. But it was just sort of like
Yeah.
it was the
Eurovision is
thing to
very,
do.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was the thing to do, and I just thought, okay, I could go or I could not. It's just not
Mm,
really my thing. Um,
okay.
yeah.
So what sort of tips, a couple of tips you want to leave us with before you go away?
Yeah, I think, I think the important there's three things to really, really remember
Okay.
about resilience. And I think the main thing is I talked about this earlier is the concept of your story and that your story is what your values are, what you believe in, who you are. It's not just the series of events on your CV or your resume. It's really about who you are as a person. um, the second thing to keep in mind that I think helps build resilience and help sustain resilience, and this is particularly difficult, I think, for people who are self-employed or people who are coaches, um, um, is community. It's so easy to become isolated, particularly if you work on your own, if you're self-employed. I sit here in front of my computer all day long. It's really easy to just be stuck here all day long. So community is important, whatever that community is, whether that means you go to, we're fortunate here in Germany, there are open air markets. There are markets you can go to a couple of times a week. And it's just beautiful to be out and experiencing that, even if it's
Mm,
-7 degrees. People are out there enjoying it and people are connecting with other people. However that happens, you do it somehow. I managed to go to a few weeks ago a dog walking club. I don't have a dog. I used to have a dog. I love dogs. Um, I used to have a dog, don't have a dog anymore. Nevertheless, was invited to go on a dog walk with a dog walking club. And it was
okay.
great because I got to hang out with a bunch of dogs, which was always good, and a bunch of really nice human beings as well. Community is important.
Community important.
And then
Yeah.
the third really is about gratitude. I think
Yeah.
this, when we first met, there was this activity that I did, and one of the things I really love
Oh,
to do
that
is
was
have
amazing.
people is have people talk about the things that they're grateful for. Three things they're grateful for today, three things they're grateful for yesterday. Write them down. Then they just exchange those ideas. Very simplified, very fast explanation. They exchange those ideas, and as they're exchanging the ideas, the other person just listens and just listens to what the other person's grateful for. And it
Mm.
can be anything. It can be a pay rise. It can be your baby slept through the night. It can be your dog stopped barking. It can be your dog is finally trained to go outside. Um, and then you just listen, right?
Mm.
And then at the end of this activity, I said, okay, now I would like you to turn to the other person and complain about something.
So
And there
hard.
was somebody who said, I don't want to. And that
So
happens a lot,
hard.
is that
I
you
mean,
get in this
Gary,
mindset.
that exercise that you did with us in Lisbon was so powerful. In that moment of gratitude, where we were thinking of things that we were grateful for, and I remember sitting in my group and thinking, it's really calmed my nerves.
Mm,
Because if you remember, I was presenting after you later on
yes,
in the afternoon. So
yes,
if you're going to come up, your things are always going on in your mind. You
right.
help to make, once I'd said the things I was grateful for, I suddenly felt calmer,
Mhm,
and that's where you're building the resilience of what's going to come forward. So
yeah,
that I can speak to. Being grateful,
yeah, yeah,
finding three things to be grateful for is very powerful.
and to cultivate it on a regular basis. I think
Mm.
that's the important thing, because it's easy to do it one day. If I, there were people who said, "Oh, well, in fact, I just did it again recently," and there was a group of people who said, "Oh, well, politics in my country is terrible," and this, and they went on, and I was like, "Oh, this wasn't supposed to go this way at all." And so we talked about it, and yes, it's easy to you can pull yourself out of it
Mm.
quite easily. But I think the more that you cultivate it, the more that you really work on it,
Mm.
um, it's really hard to hold. As I said, on that day, it's really hard to hold those two ideas in your head at the same time. To be really
Absolutely.
grateful for something and to feel really terrible about something at the
Mm.
same time, it's hard. Your brain is doing this. It doesn't
Mm.
like it. It doesn't
Yeah.
like it. Um, and so anyway, I think those
Those
are
are the
kind of the three
three
things to
three
keep in
things.
mind.
So
Yeah.
tip number one, I wrote it down.
Mhm.
Concept of your story, your values, beliefs, and what you stand for. Tip
Right.
two is community, especially if you're self-employed, to build your
Absolutely.
resilience muscles. And tip three is about gratitude. So there you are, guys. Those are the three tips that Gary's leaving us with. And he came with some, as they say, I always say, when people come to your house, they always bring a bottle of wine, at least.
Mm, mm.
So what what's your bottle of wine
I
or
have I have a
version of
couple.
your bottle of wine
I
to
have a
come to
couple
dinner?
bottles of wine. I have
A
a couple
couple of,
bottles of wine.
yes,
Sure,
that's
why
good.
not? So this thing that we've just spoken about, these issues around sort of the
Mm,
challenges that leaders have. I have a booklet. It's more than just kind of a worksheet or a checklist. It's 6 or 7 pages, and it's about things to think about if you're a new leader,
hmm.
things that you can think about, not just for yourself, but also for your team. It's for both. It's challenges you might experience as somebody who's managing people for the first time, what you
Hmm.
might see in them, also what you might experience in yourself, and also strategies to deal with it. So
Yeah.
issues around time management. What do you do about time management if you suddenly find that you either yourself or a team member is having difficulty with time management? What can you do? Now,
Mm.
they're very basic. So that's and then also I talk about resilience at the end of it, and how those issues tie back to resilience. So that's the first bottle of wine.
Yay.
Um, and then which is
Actually, next time I'm
available.
going to say champagne because I love my fizz.
Okay. And
So
so the
where's the
next one.
champagne then? The
Sure.
next
Okay.
one
So
is
the
champagne.
champagne. So the next one's. So first of all, if anybody wants the bottle of wine, they can just message me directly on LinkedIn. I'm happy to just send that right over to you. No problem. Um, the champagne is on July 1st.
Mm,
I'm going to be launching a coaching program, as I said earlier, particularly for new leaders who are just transitioning into perhaps line management for the first time. They're maybe moved out of a technical role and they suddenly have people responsibility, which can be a massive challenge for people. July 1st, it'll be 8 weeks. There will be video, there will be homework, there will be reflections, and most importantly, because community is what I've talked about quite a bit today,
hmm.
um, there is um, the coaching itself is every Monday evening for 90 minutes, and it's a group coaching program. So this is the whole thing about community, right? It's not just me coaching. I will be coaching people in this group, in this community, but everyone is there to help everybody else. You talk about servant leadership. Everyone is there to help everybody else. There will be a Facebook group that everybody who is part of the program will be able to join. And the
Okay.
champagne of it is that it starts July 1st,
Okay.
and it is for the 8 weeks of 90 minutes of coaching. So essentially 12 hours of
Mm.
12 hours of coaching. It's 297 euros, but you get a free bottle of champagne if you are one of the first 4 people to sign up for it. You'll get it for free. I'm happy to to have you join me on that 8 week journey for no cost at all. The workbook, the checklist is also available at no cost. But yes, the
journey. Okay.
yeah.
Coaching, 8-week coaching.
Yeah, so it's an 8-week group coaching program for 297 euros, 8 weeks of video and also 90 minutes of live coaching. It's not just recorded. It's not like an evergreen thing that I throw up on the internet and somebody pays for. It's actual coaching. And it's
Mm,
actual, and I think what makes it the champagne is
mhm.
that it's really about community.
Yeah.
Um, if it fills up, I will do so that's a Monday night, starts July 1st. If it
Okay.
fills up, I'll open another one on July
Okay.
2nd. So Monday night and Tuesday night as well.
Oh, that's amazing. We
Yeah,
just
if
had
it
a
fills up.
comment from YouTube. This is going
Mhm.
across YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. There's a comment from LinkedIn, YouTube that said, community support, exactly what resilience is about.
Yeah,
Yeah, it helps you. It's all about having that a net, the net that will catch you if you fall.
yeah,
Having that net that will
yeah,
catch you. So thank you
yeah.
for that
And I
comment.
and thank you. Yes, thank you for that comment because I think it's it's 100% true. It's impossible, I think, to be resilient if you don't have people around you.
Mm,
It's just it's simply not. It's different. That's toughness. That's grit. We talked about this in Lisbon.
hmm.
Um, Resilience is about having people around you and helping you bounce back and get through it and work through it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
to the person who wrote that, thank you for that.
Yes, I am. I think it could be Richard Cunningham. I am suspecting because he, Richard, I'm guessing that's you because he asked for the YouTube link, and I guess he's watching on YouTube. So, Richard, thank you very much for that comment. Well, Gary, we're nearly at the end, so thank
Are
you
we
very
okay?
much.
Wow, that was
Yes,
fast.
I know. I told you if you're
I hope it
having
was as fast for everybody else as it felt for me. I thought it was very fast.
I could talk to you forever, considering that you and I both lived in Florida once upon a time, and
Once
you were
upon a
born
time,
in
yeah.
Florida, right?
Yep, that's
Yeah,
correct.
and
Yep.
so I was in Orlando, and
Right.
you started your life in
In Tampa.
Tampa.
Yeah.
Tampa. I
So
have
not
a
far from Orlando. Yeah.
yeah, not too far. It's about 100 miles,
About.
something
Yep.
like
About
that.
100
Yeah.
miles. Yeah.
So not too far. Yeah, Florida is
Yeah.
very nice and hot
Yes, very
for
nice and
most
hot.
people.
And in
Yeah,
US
the winter
terms,
is
100
just
miles is nothing. So
yeah.
in
Oh
European
yeah.
terms,
That's,
100 miles seems like a lot, but Florida
you need a
terms,
train to get somewhere in 100 miles. So
yeah.
yeah. But I'm very, very grateful for your talk on leadership, resilience, and
You.
authenticity. And anything that brings a challenge or a worry lines to a leader. Most people, when they become leaders, I don't know about you, most people when they become leaders go great overnight.
Yeah. Well,
Especially, I don't know why. I've started going grey because I've had,
not that I'm a leader, but I passed that line a long time ago.
oh dear. I always say that leadership comes with grey hairs. That means that you're actually thinking about
Mhm.
things that does not have anything to do with the day-to-day management of what you're doing. It's
Yes.
about it's leading a team. Management is about managing the tasks
Right. That's
and
exactly it.
coordinating the tasks. So
That's
that's how I
exactly it.
see it.
Yeah. I mean
So
yeah, the saw, the old saw that leaders, nobody has to have the title to be a leader. Um,
yes, exactly.
and nobody, and having that title doesn't automatically make you a leader.
Indeed.
Having a title of a manager often just makes you a manager. Having a title of a leader doesn't mean you're automatically a leader. You might be a
You
long
don't
way
need
from
to
that.
be in the corner office to be a leader.
No, not at
Not
all.
at
Not
all. Not
at
at all.
all. Not at
Yeah.
all.
We even have open plan now, don't we? So hot
True.
desk. But still,
Hot desk.
people still find the corner of the office to sit in. Eat.
They get, yeah,
They
well, I
still
mean,
get
that's the
that.
thing, people who love that, they're the ones who always get into the office at 6 o'clock in the morning because they
Exactly.
want the best spot.
Exactly.
It's good for
Well,
them. So,
yeah. So Gary, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank
I know
you.
you're very busy, but hopefully we'll catch up again. You come back if the book and everything, the book which is starting, I'm sure, will become a book. Please come by and tell us how we can get one, and so on. Because I think this is the beginning of several conversations that we're going to have. And for viewers who are watching now and those watching tomorrow, the day after, or whatever, on catch up, thank you for joining us, and I hope you've taken some nuggets from this conversation. I certainly have, and mine is the value of gratitude and authenticity and being open hearted when it comes to that leadership journey. So thank you for joining Tea with Lily, and of course those that will be on catch up. And my name is Lily Nadu Mensah. I'm the quirky host, and I'm always here to answer your burning questions. And as you go about your business today, tomorrow, and the day after, may everything that you wish for be the least that you receive. Gary, thank you so much again. Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been great. It's been a good time.
Thanks for joining. See you guys soon. See you next week, I
Bye,
think.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.